The morning flight from Denver to Seattle wasn't supposed to be memorable. It was the kind of routine domestic hop that business travelers slept through and families endured with snacks and screens. The Boeing 737 hummed with the ordinary orchestra of modern air travel, overhead fans whispering, seatbelts clinking, the faint mechanical drone of engines pushing metal and humanity through the sky. In seat 7F, Emily Carter pressed her forehead to the cold window, watching the snowy Rockies slide beneath them like a jagged white quilt. She'd always loved this part, the altitude where mountains, clouds, and dreams looked strangely equal. But today she wasn't traveling for joy. She squeezed a silver dog tag between her fingers, its edges worn smooth from years of anxious rubbing. Madge Daniel Carter. Falcon. Her father's tag, her father's call sign. Her father declared missing 3 years ago. "Would you like something to drink?" the flight attendant asked with a practiced commercial smile. Emily startled slightly. Just water, thanks." Her voice barely rose above a whisper. She hoped she sounded normal. She hoped no one saw the grief that had carved out hollow spaces behind her eyes. A toddler, too, rose back, banged his tray table. A teenager argued quietly with his mother. An elderly man snored like a lawn mower. Everything was normal, beautifully mundane. Until it was. The captain's voice crackled through the speaker system, warm, confident. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're currently passing." A short cough interrupted him, rough, violent. Then another. Then silence. At first no one reacted. Speakers on airplanes glitch all the time, but the quiet lingered, too long, too unnatural. A hard jolt rattled the cabin, like the plane stumbled in the sky. Murmurs replaced calm, heads tilted, eyes darted. The seatbelt sign flickered, then lit up with a loud ding. Emily's heart seized. That wasn't turbulence, that was control slipping. 2 flight attendants exchanged looks, concerned, tight looks, and hurried toward the cockpit. They knocked. "Captain, everything all right?" Silence. They knocked again, louder. "Captain." No reply, no movement. The attendants tried the handle, locked. A collective chill spread through the rows. The elderly man stopped snoring. The toddler stopped banging. Even the engines felt different, roaring a little too unevenly, like the plane was questioning its own direction. One attendant forced a smile and addressed the passengers. "Everyone please remain seated. This is just a minor communication." A sudden steep roll cut her off. Luggage fell from overhead bins. People screamed as the world tilted violently to the right. Emily gripped the armrests, knuckles pale. Her breath turned quick and thin inside her chest. No, no, no. Oxygen masks dropped with a thud, releasing a hiss like 1,000 serpents. Straps swung in front of faces frozen in panic. A businessman fumbled, swearing. A mother scrambled to fit a mask over her sobbing child. Another passenger prayed under his breath. Emily instinctively grabbed her mask and pulled, but her hands trembled so badly she missed the first try. A flight attendant, face now pale and slick with fear, returned to the intercom. "Is anyone here a pilot? Anyone with flight experience? We need help." The request echoed like a knife in Emily's skull. She sucked in a shaky breath through the mask. Her pulse hammered. The dog tag in her fist dug into her skin hard enough to leave a mark. She did have flight experience. Simulators, training. Her father had taught her more than any teenager should know about aerodynamics. But that was small aircraft, Cessnas, not a massive commercial jet with 180 souls aboard. Her brain fired reasons to stay quiet. "You'll embarrass yourself. You'll freeze, fail, crash everyone. They'll laugh, they'll say you're just a kid. Your father isn't here to guide you." But another voice, deeper, familiar, cut through the terror. "Aviators don't choose the moment chooses them." Her father's voice. Her hero's voice. Emily swallowed the lump in her throat. The trembling in her legs didn't stop. Her breath didn't steady. But she stood anyway. Passengers stared as if she'd lost her mind. One man barked, "Sit down, let the crew handle it." A flight attendant stared at her, eyes wide, stunned that a teenager was stepping forward. I can help," Emily stuttered. "I'm trained at the Aviation Academy in Colorado Springs. I've logged simulator hours, I know procedures." The attendant paused, panic and doubt wrestling behind her eyes. "How old are you?" she breathed. 19, Emily answered, though it sounded like she was trying to convince herself. The plane hit another dip, a heart-dropping plummet that sent more screams cascading through the cabin. The attendant made her choice. "Follow me." They pushed up the aisle, past terrified faces and shaking hands. Emily's fingers brushed seatbacks as if the entire aircraft were begging her to stabilize it. Seat 7F stared back at her from behind, safe, familiar. She wasn't safe anymore. She wasn't just a passenger. She reached the cockpit door. One attendant punched in the override code. The keypad beeped red, denied. She tried again. Red. The system had auto-locked, emergency security mode. There was no getting in. The attendants began shouting through the door again, pounding hard enough to bruise. "Captain, please respond." Emily leaned her forehead against the cold metal door, mind racing. Think like Dad taught you." She turned, scanning the controls on the wall, panel switches for communication, electrical override interphone. If she couldn't get to the pilots, she could try to reach someone who could help. She grabbed the nearest comm unit, hands still shaking but purpose forming like steel in her spine. She pressed the transmit button. Her voice, trembling but determined, went out into the wide, cold sky. This is passenger Emily Carter on Flight 228. We have a medical emergency. Both pilots are unresponsive. I need instructions to manually fly this aircraft." Static. Then a voice answered, professional but alarmed. "Flight 228, this is Denver Center. Did you say passenger?" "Yes," Emily said, breath sharp. "I need help, please. There are 180 people on board." Another beat of silence. Then the controller asked a question she hadn't expected. "What is your call sign?" Her call sign. Time slowed. The world narrowed. Her fingers tightened around the dog tag. Falcon. Her father's legacy. A word filled with pride and pain, and unanswered questions. Emily raised the mic again, heart pounding. "My call sign is Falcon." Silence hit the radio like a lightning strike. The controller stopped speaking mid-word. The background chatter halted. Someone or many someones were listening now. Emily stared ahead, chest rising and falling like she'd run miles. Someone recognized that name. Somewhere alarms were triggering, screens were flashing, commanders were standing. The airplane shuddered, nosing down slightly. The wings trembled. Passengers screamed again, the sound a single beast of panic tearing through the cabin. Emily clutched the radio, eyes burning with fear and something else. Determination. She wasn't ready. She wasn't qualified. She wasn't supposed to be in this moment. But the moment chose her anyway. The speakers crackled again. A new voice, urgent military. Flight 228, hold position. Assistance inbound. Falcon, do not lose control. Emily swallowed hard. Trying, she whispered. The plane continued to drop. And somewhere far away, jets began to scramble. Emily's voice trembled through the radio, but she clung to it like a lifeline. Falcon. The word seemed to resonate far beyond the ordinary airwaves. Somewhere, someone was listening, someone who knew. Minutes stretched into eternity. The hum of the engines filled the cabin, Yet Emily could hear the faint pounding of her own heart over the mechanical roar. Flight attendants hovered, fear etched into every line of their faces. Passengers pressed against their armrests, praying silently, watching the young girl who had just claimed the impossible, taking command of a jet in freefall. "Control, Falcon." The voice was hesitant, almost unsure, yet threaded with authority. "Repeat your call sign." Emily swallowed hard, mouth dry. Her fingers shook around the mic. "Falcon, my call sign, Falcon." There was a pause so long it felt as if time itself had stopped. Then static cleared and a new voice broke through. Deep, commanding, impossible to ignore. "Falcon, confirm you are Falcon." Emily froze. That voice, like the memory of lightning slicing through the dark, stirred something buried in her memory. It wasn't just any military voice. The cadence, the weight, the confidence, it was her father. But that couldn't be. Her father had disappeared 3 years ago, declared dead, classified mission, a ghost. I'm his daughter," Emily whispered. The radio trembled in her grip. "Emily Carter." Silence. Then unexpectedly the voice softened. "Emily, you have his eyes." Her knees nearly buckled. Tears pricked her eyes, but she forced them back. The cockpit was still locked, the plane still trembling in the sky. And yet in that moment the impossible seemed real. Someone who knew her father was guiding her now. "Falcon, your father's legacy carries through you," the voice said. There was urgency now, a sense of history and expectation that made Emily's stomach knot. "Do you understand flight instruments? Can you stabilize the plane?" Emily nodded, even though the voice couldn't see her. "Yes, I think I can. I've trained on simulators. I know procedures. I don't know how to do it with a real aircraft." "Listen carefully," the voice replied, firm now, commanding her attention. "Trust your instincts, step by step. Focus on the yoke, the throttle, the altimeter. Ignore everything else. You have control, Falcon." Her pulse raced. This was no longer a simple emergency. Somewhere, hidden under layers of government secrecy, someone was listening to the young girl in seat 7F, someone who recognized her as more than just a passenger. Someone who knew the story of her father, a story she had been denied all her life. Emily forced herself to breathe. The plane dipped sharply, throwing unsecured passengers against their seatbelts. A soda can tumbled past her face, narrowly missing her ear. She gripped the radio mic tighter. "Step 1, the voice continued. "Check your altitude and airspeed. Maintain level wings. Don't panic if you feel turbulence. You are not alone." Emily leaned over the console, reading the dials like a map. The altimeter spun, the artificial horizon tilting. She mimicked everything her father had drilled into her mind. Eyes, hands, instincts. "Control, I'm trying," she whispered almost to herself. "Wings leveled, altitude holding, kind of." "Good," the voice responded. "You're doing fine. Now, Falcon, tell me, are you ready to take the yoke fully?" Emily's throat tightened. This wasn't a simulator. One wrong move and the plane and everyone on board would be gone in seconds. I am," she stammered. There was another pause, then a click as another voice joined the radio. Military, professional, calm. "Falcon, this is Denver Center. We have F-22s scrambling to intercept and escort your aircraft. You are not alone." Emily's head snapped up. F-22s. Fighter jets. She had seen them in airshows, screaming across the horizon, but never in person, never this close. And yet, within minutes, 2 sleek gray silhouettes roared across the sky, their afterburners trailing white-hot streaks like arrows of fire. The first jet pulled alongside her window. She could see the pilot's helmeted head, the visor reflecting sunlight and determination. He saluted, a crisp, professional motion that froze Emily in awe. She could barely comprehend the surreal scene, fighter pilots saluting a teenager in a passenger jet. Emily's voice trembled. Why are they saluting me?" The voice she had come to recognize as her father's former comrade responded over the radio. "Because, Falcon, they know who you are. They know what you represent." A sharp jolt rocked the cabin. The engines coughed and sputtered. Smoke curled faintly from the right engine's exhaust. Panic erupted around her. Passengers screamed, some crying, some frozen in disbelief. Flight attendants moved like frantic shadows, helping, calming, shouting, doing everything they could. Emily took a deep breath. "Don't panic. You can do this." She had trained for emergencies in simulators, studied procedures, memorized checklists, but nothing prepared her for real life at 30,000 feet with hundreds of people depending on her. Her hands found the yoke, her eyes locked on the artificial horizon. The plane lurched again. She mimicked what the voice had instructed: level the wings, stabilize the pitch, monitor the instruments. She adjusted the throttle. The plane responded, slowly, trembling but obedient. "Good," the voice said over the radio. "Now keep her steady. You are stronger than you think." Emily's mind reeled, stronger than she thought. Not a child, not a passenger, a Falcon, her father's daughter. She could do this. She had to. But just as she began to feel control, a red warning light flashed on the console, engine temperature critical. Smoke filled the cockpit. The plane shuddered violently. "Falcon," the voice shouted, "you must prepare for emergency descent. Don't hesitate. You are in command now." Emily's stomach dropped. Emergency descent. Full control. She could almost hear her father's voice inside her head, calm and measured. "Trust yourself. Don't give in to fear." She swallowed, gripping the yoke tighter. "Yes, I understand." The F-22s adjusted formation around her plane, tilting slightly, scanning the sky for potential threats. Emily could see their pilots' gloved hands moving with precision, instruments blinking, faces unreadable behind visors. She realized how small her aircraft must look from their perspective, a giant in comparison, yet fragile as glass. The red warning lights flared again. Smoke poured in, faint but terrifying. The plane's nose dipped slightly. The passengers screamed in terror. Emily felt her knees buckle, but she forced herself to stay upright. She had to act. Her voice came out steady over the mic, trembling only slightly. I'm ready. Give me instructions." Another pause. Then the voice she had grown to trust, the one that had belonged to her father's comrade, said, "Falcon, take a deep breath. You are the only one who can land this plane. I will guide you. Listen carefully and trust yourself. The world is watching, but the sky is yours." Emily's grip on the yoke tightened. Every nerve screamed. Her mind raced with calculations, procedures, instincts. This was real. People depended on her. Hundreds of lives. She could feel the weight crushing her chest and pushing her forward at the same time. And then, almost imperceptibly, the plane leveled. A slight, trembling victory, but the danger was far from over. Emily swallowed hard. Sweat ran down her temple. Her hands were white on the yoke. I can do this," she whispered. Behind the cockpit glass, the F-22s dipped, their pilots' movements precise, almost ceremonial. The salute she had glimpsed wasn't just respect. It was recognition. And somewhere deep in the sky, Emily understood something profound. She was about to make history. But even as she steadied herself, a new alarm lit up the console. Something she hadn't expected. Something beyond her training. Fuel pressure dropping, critical. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Her eyes widened. The plane groaned like a living creature in pain. She glanced at the radio, hopping for guidance, hopping for reassurance. The voice came, calm but urgent. "Falcon, this is the hardest part. You are going to have to keep her in the air with one less engine. Are you ready?" Emily's hands tightened on the yoke. Her chest heaved. Her heart pounded like a drum. She whispered under her breath, "I have to be ready. I am ready." The plane trembled violently again, shoving passengers into their seats. Screams echoed. Panic surged. And then Emily Carter, 19, daughter of the legendary Falcon, sat in seat 7F, her fingers white, her eyes blazing, ready to do the impossible. The plane lurched. The engine sputtered again. And somewhere far above, the F-22s roared into position, ready to guide her into history. The real test was about to begin. Far away at Nelly's Air Force Base, the morning sun glinted off the sleek fuselage of two F-22 Raptors resting on the tarmac. Captain Reeves and his wingman, Lieutenant Hale, were halfway through a routine training flight when a crackling transmission cut through their headsets. "Falcon, Falcon." Hale frowned. "That's a civilian. It's coming from the Denver Center, Flight 228. Reeves' jaw tightened. "I heard that call sign." His fingers clenched on the throttle. Falcon. 3 years. 3 years he thought the call sign was gone forever, retired along with the memory of Major Daniel Carter, one of the most decorated pilots in U.S. Air Force history, missing during a classified mission over the Pacific. Reeves' voice dropped steady, professional. "Vector us. Immediately. I don't care if it's a civilian. I want eyes on that aircraft now." Hale hesitated, brow furrowed. "Captain, you know what that call sign means. That's Daniel Carter's call sign." Reeves' eyes were fixed, unblinking. "I know, and I think his daughter is flying that plane. Let's go." In minutes, the Raptors roared into the sky. Their afterburners cut through the cold Colorado air, streaking like silver bullets across the horizon. Each maneuver precise, predatory, their sleek silhouettes slicing through the clouds. On the radar, Flight 228 appeared as a large, lumbering blip, a civilian jet in distress. But Reeves' gut told him this wasn't ordinary. This was personal. Below, the Boeing 737 lurched again, metal groaning as it tried to recover from a sudden dip. Emily's hands were white on the yoke. The voice guiding her over the radio, calm, authoritative, instructed her to level the wings and maintain altitude. Then the unmistakable silhouettes appeared in her peripheral vision. 2 Raptors, immense power, lightning fast. They hovered like guardian angels on either side of the passenger jet, their engines screaming, afterburners glowing like the eyes of predators. Emily's mouth fell open. She had never seen jets so close, not outside of airshows or movies. The pilots' visors reflected sunlight, sharp and untouchable, yet in some strange way she felt their presence as reassurance. Not a threat. Protection. Reeves extended his arm in a perfect salute. Hale mirrored him. Emily's breath caught. Her father's legacy, respected, honored, alive through these pilots, had just reached her in the most surreal, terrifying, awe-inspiring way. Her fingers tightened on the controls, heart hammering. "Focus. You are Falcon now." Then the voice she trusted, the one she had come to rely on as a lifeline, spoke again over the radio. "Falcon, your father would be proud. You are capable of handling this aircraft. Keep her steady. We're here." Emily swallowed hard. "I am trying." The plane bucked violently, a sharp dip. The right engine coughed, smoke curling faintly from its vent. Panic flared in the cabin, screams, cries, passengers gripping seats, flight attendants shouting, trying to calm the chaos. Emily forced herself to steady the yoke. She adjusted the throttle. The plane responded, a little, enough to keep hope alive. "Falcon," Reeves said, voice steady but firm over the military channel. "Listen carefully. We're your eyes in the sky. Keep the wings level. Follow us. We'll guide you through every step. You are not alone." Emily blinked rapidly, overwhelmed. Fighter jets, hundreds of lives, her father's voice in her mind. The plane she had never flown before. The impossible task she had to accomplish. Then her stomach dropped. Another alarm flashed on the console, fuel pressure critical, left engine unstable. Emily gasped, "Engine 2 failing." Reeves answered immediately. "Yes, Falcon, you need to prepare for emergency procedures. Don't panic, trust your instincts, trust your training, and trust yourself." Her mind raced, heart hammering. The simulator drills had never prepared her for this. The sound of a real jet groaning under her control, hundreds of terrified passengers, and F-22s screaming beside her like celestial protectors. She is ready. The thought burned like fire. She must be. The Raptors adjusted formation, showing her the path. Reeves gestured with hand signals through his visor, wings level, throttle smooth, approach vector clear. Emily mimicked his gestures internally, feeling a strange sense of unity with these pilots who had never met her but somehow knew she was the last hope. Falcon, Reeves continued, voice sharp now, you must prepare for descent. You'll need to reduce altitude steadily, maintain control, and follow our guidance to the nearest airport. Any abrupt movement could destabilize the plane. Emily's hands shook violently. She could feel the sweat burning her eyes, soaking her uniform. The artificial horizon wavered under her gaze. She adjusted minute by minute, degree by degree, until the plane responded. Small corrections, controlled movements, survival. In the cabin, passengers were clinging to each other, muttering prayers. Flight attendants moved like ghosts, calm and panicked at the same time, helping where they could, shouting instructions where the chaos demanded. Emily could hear them, feel their fear, and she could not fail them. Reeves' voice came again, softer this time. Falcon, listen. You may be the youngest person ever to pilot a commercial jet in an emergency, but history doesn't measure age, it measures courage. Your father left you a legacy. You're carrying it now. Hold steady. Breathe. You've got this. Emily swallowed, her vision blurred with tears. She remembered her father in the garage, teaching her, drilling her, joking with her. Falcon, a real pilot doesn't panic. A real pilot flies even when the sky is screaming at you. She tightened her grip. She was Falcon. But just as the thought solidified, the plane shuddered violently again. Another warning light blazed red. Landing gear malfunction. The cabin erupted into panic. The toddlers screamed. The elderly groaned. Business travelers yelled. The metallic groan of stressed metal filled the air, punctuated by the faint hiss of venting smoke. Emily's teeth clenched. She forced herself to focus. One step at a time, one instrument at a time, level wings, reduce speed, monitor altitude, communicate with air traffic control, follow the Raptors. Reeves leaned into his throttle, eyes sharp behind his visor. He had seen a lot of crises in his career, but this was different. A teenager, alone, flying a civilian jet with military precision guided only by instinct. He clenched his jaw. She's doing it, he muttered. Hale nodded silently, both pilots awed and tense. Below, the Colorado plain stretched out, deceptively calm. The city of Denver lay glittering in the morning sun, oblivious to the airborne drama that threatened hundreds of lives. Emergency teams were alerted, runways prepped, but no one yet knew the extent of the miracle happening at 30,000 feet. Emily adjusted the yoke again. She could feel her arms trembling, her legs weak, her pulse thundering. But she also felt something else, determination, responsibility, courage. She was no longer a passenger. She was Falcon. Then the plane lurched sharply. Smoke poured from the right engine. The F-22s immediately moved into closer formation. Reeves' voice broke the radio silence, calm but forceful. Falcon, we're with you. Eyes on the runway, keep her steady. You can do this. Your father's watching. The world is watching. Don't lose control now. Emily's knuckles turned white on the yoke. Her teeth gritted. She whispered under her breath, I won't. I cannot fail. But even as she spoke, the aircraft trembled violently. Sparks of panic danced across the cockpit lights. She realized the most dangerous part was yet to come, the descent, the approach, the landing. And somewhere high above, two F-22s continued to roar in formation, guardian angels of steel and fire. The stage was set. The sky was theirs. And the impossible was only just beginning. Emily Carter's hands were white-knuckled on the yoke, the vibrations of the aircraft thrumming through her arms like a living heartbeat. Every muscle screamed in protest, her mind a chaotic storm of fear, adrenaline, and fragmented instructions. And yet, she remembered her father's words, spoken in the dim garage of their Colorado home years ago. Falcon, a pilot doesn't panic. A pilot flies even when the world is shaking under them. She swallowed hard, her lips pressing into a thin line as she focused. Every instrument was a puzzle piece she had to assemble, every dial a whisper of hope. The plane had leveled momentarily, but turbulence loomed ahead like jagged teeth in the clouds. The cabin was a theater of anxiety. Flight attendants clung to jump seats, bracing against the violent sway. Passengers prayed, sobbed, and shouted simultaneously. Behind her, toddlers wailed, elderly men and women shook, and some sat frozen in shock. Emily could feel the collective weight of all those lives pressing down on her chest. The enormity of her task threatened to crush her. Then, through the static and the roar, came the reassuring hum of F-22 jets, slicing through the air with precision. Captain Reeves and Lieutenant Hale flanked her, their sleek aircraft shadows glinting in the sunlight. Emily had never felt so small, yet paradoxically, she also felt the invisible strength of her father's legacy surging through her veins. Falcon, Reeves' voice crackled through the radio, calm, commanding, perfectly steady. "You're doing well, keep her steady. Monitor airspeed, watch your instruments. The sky is yours, one step at a time." Emily nodded, her teeth clenched. The plane trembled violently. She adjusted the throttle, felt the plane respond, and for a heartbeat, a fragile sense of control blossomed inside her. She was flying, really flying, not a simulator, not practice. Life and death hung on every subtle input she made. Her eyes flicked to the altimeter, steady, but the plane was losing precious altitude. The turbulence ahead was nothing like she trained for. Clouds twisted violently, gusts whipped at the fuselage, and the engines groaned. She pressed her lips together and whispered, almost to herself, "Steady, steady, steady." "Falcon, your father would be proud," Reeves said over the radio. His tone softened for the first time, tinged with emotion. "He trained you well. You are his daughter, strong, smart, fearless. Trust your instincts." Emily's chest constricted. The words hit deeper than she could have imagined. Her father, gone for 3 years, taken from her in a blur of classified silence, was alive in her memory, alive in these words, alive in her hands on the controls. And now his comrades were recognizing her, respecting her, honoring the legacy he left behind. But there was no time to dwell on emotion. The plane shuddered, tilting sharply as it pierced another patch of violent turbulence. Oxygen masks swung. Screams erupted in the cabin. Emily's stomach lurched. She gritted her teeth, muscles tightening. She could hear the faint sound of metal groaning, the plane protesting the strain. The right engine flickered, coughing smoke. Emily swallowed hard. "One less engine. You can handle it. You have to." She adjusted the throttle, balancing the force of the failing engine against the strength of the one still functioning. The yoke shivered under her grip, but she fought to maintain altitude. "Falcon," Reeves said, voice firm. "You're doing fine. Now prepare for coordinated descent. You'll need to line up with runway 7 at Denver International. Emergency crews are standing by. You have guidance. Follow our lead. Don't hesitate." Emily's pulse surged. Descent. The most dangerous part. The runway miles below looked deceptively calm, sun glinting off concrete and steel, oblivious to the airborne drama unfolding above. She had practiced landings in simulators, but never with a real aircraft, never with turbulence, never with hundreds of lives in the balance, never knowing if she would make it. She adjusted the flaps, nodding the violent lurch as the plane responded. Another tremor shook the fuselage. A passenger cried out. Emily's throat tightened. She swallowed hard and whispered, "I've got this, I have to." Her hands burned, her arms ached, but she pressed on. Each adjustment of the yoke was a battle, every throttle tweak a gamble. The plane responded slowly, reluctantly, but it responded, and that response, fragile and imperfect as it was enough. Through the haze of fear and adrenaline, a thought surfaced. Her father had trained her for this. Every long weekend in the garage, every simulated emergency, every lecture about reading the instruments like a second language, every story about his missions, all of it led to this moment. She wasn't just flying a plane. She was honoring a legacy. She was carrying the mantle of Falcon. Then came another warning light: landing gear malfunction. Sparks of panic ignited in her chest, but she forced herself to breathe, step by step, one thing at a time. Flaps, throttle, wings, altitude, focus, focus, focus. The plane lurched violently again, tossing passengers in their seats. Flight attendants shouted, struggling to maintain composure. Emily could see fear etched in their faces. She gritted her teeth and pushed the yoke forward slightly, stabilizing the descent. Another correction. Another heartbeat survived. "Falcon, steady," Reeves said. "You're lined up. The runway is in sight. Keep her level. You're almost there." Emily's eyes flicked to the horizon. The airport glinted below, orderly, calm, a stark contrast to the chaos inside her aircraft. She could see emergency vehicles lining the runway, their flashing lights an anchor in the storm. Her pulse thundered, her arms burned, sweat stung her eyes, and yet through the fear, through the adrenaline, through the weight of responsibility, she felt a moment of clarity. I can do this. I must do this. Another violent dip shook the plane. Passengers screamed. Emily adjusted the throttle, leveled the wings, prayed silently. The F-22s flanked her, guiding her descent, a perfect ballet of metal and fire. One pilot saluted through the visor. Emily's breath caught. The respect, the acknowledgement, it was more than a gesture. It was recognition. Recognition of who she was. Recognition of her father's legacy. Recognition of courage. And then, amidst the chaos, Emily heard it, a mechanical groan, louder than before. The left engine sputtered. Smoke curled in the cockpit. Sparks flashed faintly from panels. The plane shook violently. Emily froze. Panic clawed at her. She could feel the weight of the aircraft, the hundreds of lives pressing down. The thought that she might fail, that she might not bring them home, struck with terrifying clarity. Reeves' voice cut through, calm and commanding. "Falcon, listen to me. You are the only one who can bring this plane down safely. Trust yourself. Trust the instincts your father gave you. Don't give in to fear." Emily's fingers dug into the yoke, teeth clenched, eyes burning with determination. I can do this," she whispered. "I will do this." She adjusted the throttles, balancing the failing left engine against the right. Slowly, carefully, the plane stabilized, one step at a time, one heartbeat at a time. Through the cockpit glass, she caught sight of the F-22s, wings steady, engines roaring, perfectly synchronized. They weren't just guiding her, they were protecting her. And that protection, that acknowledgement, gave her courage. The descent continued, each second a battle. Every decision mattered. Every input could mean life or death. And then, as if the universe were holding its breath, another alarm lit up. Engine 2 completely failed. Emily's chest tightened. The plane groaned like a wounded beast. The cabin erupted in screams. Flight attendants clung to seats. Passengers cried, prayed, some froze entirely. Emily swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe. She could feel every second of history pressing on her shoulders. Every moment of training, every memory of her father, every heartbeat, every life in the cabin, it all converged in her hands. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw set. She whispered through gritted teeth, I am Falcon, I will land this plane." And somewhere far above, the F-22 pilots roared in formation, guardians of the sky, ready to guide her into the impossible. But even as she steered, the truth struck her like lightning. She was carrying her father's legacy, but the plane, the passengers, and the world's eyes were all on her. The most dangerous part was yet to come. The plane groaned beneath her, metal trembling, engines faltering. Yet Emily Carter's hands remained firm on the yoke. Sweat stung her eyes, but she refused to blink. Every passenger's life, every soul on board, was a thread in the tapestry she was holding together with nothing but instinct, training, and the echo of a call sign that carried a weight 3 years in the making. Through the radio, Captain Reeves, Voice was steady but urgent, every word a lifeline. "Falcon, you're handling this better than anyone expected. Keep her steady. You're almost through the worst turbulence. Prepare for manual descent to runway 707. Emergency crews are ready." Emily nodded, teeth clenched, eyes flicking between the instruments and the horizon. But then Reeves paused, a strange weight creeping into his voice. "Falcon, before we go any further, there's something you need to know about your father." Her hands froze, the throttle shivered beneath her grip. The cabin lurched violently as a warning light flashed, fuel imbalance critical. Passengers screamed, praying, crying, holding onto each other as the plane dipped slightly. Emily swallowed hard, trying to steady her racing heart. What about my father?" she asked, voice trembling. Reeves' voice softened, just enough to cut through the static. "Your father, Daniel Carter, was a hero. What they told you about him abandoning his unit, about him being missing, it wasn't true. He stayed behind during a classified mission so that his team could escape. He sacrificed himself. That mission, it was classified. They never told you because it was sensitive, but he was not a traitor. He was the bravest pilot I've ever known." Emily's chest tightened, her eyes blurred. For years she had carried the shame, the whispers, the questions, the cold dismissal of family and friends. Her father's absence had been a wound, one that had never healed. And now the truth slammed into her like a lightning strike. He had been a hero, he had saved lives, and he had left her the legacy she now carried. Tears threatened, but she couldn't afford to lose focus. Not now. Not with the plane trembling, the passengers screaming, and her father's legacy literally in her hands. "Falcon," Reeves continued, urgency creeping back into his tone. "The left engine is unstable. Smoke is increasing. You need to prepare for manual landing. Emergency crews are on the runway. You are the only one who can bring this plane down safely." Emily swallowed hard. Her mind flashed to the thousands of small decisions she had made in simulators, every adjustment to the yoke, every throttle tweak, every instrument she had memorized by rote. Those lessons weren't just for practice anymore. They were for survival. She adjusted the throttle, balancing the failing left engine against the right. The plane shuddered violently. Sparks flickered faintly from panels. Oxygen masks swung. Screams echoed. And yet through the chaos, Emily felt a strange clarity. She was doing this. She was controlling the impossible. Her thoughts drifted briefly to her father, the long weekends in the garage, the smell of engine oil and metal, the lessons drilled with patience and precision. Trust your instincts. Don't panic. Aviators fly even when the world shakes. Emily took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. She adjusted the flaps, leveled the wings, monitored the instruments. The plane responded, slow but obedient. Every action, every calculation, every decision mattered. One mistake, 1 second of hesitation, and they would all die. Reeves' voice returned, calm and commanding. "Falcon, you are the only one who can save this flight. Line her up with the runway. Emergency crews are standing by. You're almost there. You've got this." Emily's jaw set. She could see the runway faintly through the clouds, a glint of metal and concrete, life beneath her fingers. But another warning light flashed red. Sparks shot from the engine panel. Smoke thickened. The plane lurched violently. Passengers screamed again, some praying, some clinging to seats, some frozen in shock. Flight attendants moved like shadows, trying to calm the chaos, giving instructions through panic. Emily swallowed, forcing herself to breathe. She whispered almost to herself, "I am Falcon, I can do this, I will do this." The F-22s flanked her, roaring in formation, a shield of steel and fire. Reeves saluted again through his visor, a silent message of respect, guidance, and reassurance. Emily's eyes burned with determination. She forced the plane to level, adjusting the throttle, keeping the wings steady, step by step, inch by inch, breath by breath. Then the impossible happened. Another red warning light flashed, landing gear compromised. Emily's heart pounded. She had to think fast. She had to calculate. She had to act. She gritted her teeth, adjusting flaps and throttle, trying to compensate for the malfunction. The plane shuddered again. Sparks flashed from beneath the fuselage. Reeves' voice cut through the chaos. "Falcon, you need to trust your instincts. You are the only one who can bring this aircraft safely to the ground. Line up with the runway, focus, breathe. You've trained for this." Emily nodded, swallowing hard, her eyes scanning the instruments, the horizon, the emergency vehicles flashing below. One step at a time, one heartbeat at a time. She adjusted the yoke slightly, leveling the wings. She leaned forward, jaw set, muscles burning, every nerve screaming. She could feel the passengers' fear, their prayers, their hopes, and she could feel her father's legacy surging through her, every lesson, every story, every sacrifice. This wasn't just about landing a plane. This was about honoring everything her father had given her. Smoke curled faintly from the left engine, the plane groaned under stress, yet Emily pressed on. She leveled the wings. She monitored airspeed. She adjusted the throttle. She felt the aircraft respond, slow but steady. "Falcon," Reeves said, voice calm but urgent. "You are almost there. The runway is clear. Emergency crews are standing by. You've got this." Emily's eyes narrowed, determination blazing. "I can do this. I will do this." She whispered the words like a mantra. She adjusted flaps, leveled wings, monitored instruments. The plane lurched violently. Smoke thickened. Sparks flew from the panel. Passengers screamed. Flight attendants clutched seats, shouting instructions. Emily's hands burned on the yoke. Her arms ached. Her pulse thundered, but she forced herself to focus. One step at a time, one adjustment at a time. The runway stretched below. Emergency crews flashed lights, standing ready. The F-22s flanked her, roaring, guiding, protecting. Reeves saluted again. Emily's breath caught. This was it, the moment of truth. And then, almost as if the universe were holding its breath, the left engine failed completely. Smoke poured. The plane shuddered violently. Sparks flickered. Emily's stomach lurched. Fear clawed at her. Panic threatened. But she gritted her teeth, tightened her grip on the yoke, and whispered, "I am Falcon. I will land this plane. I will save them." The plane groaned, shuddered, and began its final approach. The runway was ahead. And the impossible was about to happen. Emily's hands shook violently on the yoke, knuckles white, sweat streaming down her temples. The Boeing 737 groaned under the strain, metal whining as if crying in pain. The left engine had completely failed, smoke curling through the cockpit vents. Sparks flickered from panels, painting the cabin in harsh, urgent bursts of red light. Every warning alarm screamed at her: fuel pressure, landing gear, engine failure, and the voices of terrified passengers echoed in her ears. She swallowed hard, forcing her mind to focus. The runway was visible now, a long silver strip cutting through the Colorado plains, flashing lights guiding the way. Emergency crews were standing by, engines rumbling in anticipation. She wasn't just landing a plane anymore. She was carrying the weight of 180 lives, her father's legacy, and the eyes of the entire nation. "Falcon," Captain Reeves' voice rang through the radio, calm but commanding, "you are about to make history. Line her up with the runway, steady your descent, focus. You've got this." Emily nodded, teeth clenched, her breath shallow but steadying. She adjusted the throttles carefully, balancing the force of the functioning right engine against the dead left engine. The plane shuddered violently. She gritted her teeth and pushed the yoke slightly forward, correcting the tilt. The artificial horizon wavered, then slowly leveled. The passengers were a mix of panic and quiet hope now. Some whispered prayers, others clung to loved ones. Flight attendants moved through the cabin, shouting instructions, trying to calm the hysteria. Emily could hear every cry, every sob, every heartbeat, and it only strengthened her resolve. "Falcon," Reeves continued, "the F-22s are on either side. Follow their lead. They will guide you to the runway. Watch their maneuvers, mirror their movements. You are not alone." She glanced out the cockpit windows. The two F-22s were in perfect formation, roaring engines and blazing afterburners like twin guardians of steel. Captain Reeves saluted her from his cockpit as they guided her approach. Emily's chest tightened. This was no longer just a test of skill. It was a recognition, respect, recognition of courage, recognition of the Falcon legacy. The plane dipped slightly, jolting her stomach. Sparks flickered on the left panel, smoke thickening. She gritted her teeth, taking a deep breath. Focus. One step at a time. One heartbeat at a time. She adjusted flaps, lowered the nose, and began the final approach. The runway grew larger in her vision, a silver ribbon lined with flashing lights. Emergency crews waved, ready, anxious. Emily's pulse thundered in her ears, every nerve screaming. Then another alarm blared, hydraulic pressure failing. Her stomach sank. The landing gear might not deploy fully. Panic threatened to break her focus, but she clenched her jaw, gripping the yoke like it was a lifeline. She whispered, "I am Falcon. I will land this plane." The F-22 on her left dipped slightly, signaling a correction. She mirrored the movement, feeling the plane respond, slow, hesitant, but responsive. Another jolt rocked the cabin, and the plane shuddered under the uneven thrust of a single engine. Sparks flickered brighter. Smoke filled the cockpit. Passengers screamed. Emily's hands burned on the controls, her arms trembling from exhaustion. Her mind raced, calculating every angle, every adjustment, every potential disaster. She remembered every lesson from her father: anticipate, adjust, correct, and never panic. The F-22s roared beside her, guiding, protecting, signaling, saluting. Their presence was both comforting and awe-inspiring. She could feel their power, their precision, their unwavering trust in her. And somehow that belief in her, in the Falcon legacy, bolstered her courage. "Falcon," Reeves said, voice cutting through the static, "prepare for landing. You will need to use differential thrust to compensate for the failed engine. Flaps at 30. Keep wings level, nose slightly up. Emergency crews are standing by." Emily nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She adjusted the throttle, balanced the right engine against the dead left engine, and lowered the flaps. The plane lurched violently. Passengers screamed. Flight attendants shouted over the chaos, guiding, reassuring, bracing. The runway was closer now. Every second stretched into eternity. Emily's vision narrowed to the horizon, the runway, the instruments, the controls. Step by step, inch by inch, one heartbeat at a time. Another warning light flashed, landing gear compromised. Her heart pounded. She could hear the metallic whine of the aircraft struggling to respond. Sparks flickered, smoke thickened. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe. "I am Falcon. I will land this plane. I will save them." She adjusted the yoke, correcting a slight tilt. The plane responded slowly, hesitantly, but it responded. The F-22s flanked her, guiding, signaling, roaring. Reeves saluted again. Emily felt the weight of every life in the cabin, every heart depending on her. She could feel the passengers' fear, their prayers, their hope. And she could feel her father's legacy surging through her, every lesson, every story, every sacrifice. The runway was moments away. Emergency crews stood ready, lights flashing, engines rumbling. The plane shuddered violently, but Emily forced herself to focus. She whispered, "I've got this. I am Falcon." The final descent was tense, precarious. She adjusted the yoke, leveled the wings, monitored instruments. Sparks flew from the panel. Smoke thickened. The plane lurched violently. Passengers screamed, cried, held onto each other. Flight attendants shouted, braced, moved through the chaos. Emily's arms burned, her hands ached, her pulse thundered, but she forced herself to focus, to act, to survive, step by step, one heartbeat at a time. And then, as if the universe itself held its breath, the plane touched down. The tires screeched against the runway, sparks flew, smoke billowed. Emergency crews converged. The F-22s circled overhead, engines roaring, afterburners blazing like twin guardians of fire. Reeves saluted again. Emily's chest heaved, body trembling, tears streaming down her face. She had done it. Against impossible odds, against fear, against failure, she had landed the plane. She had saved every life on board. She had honored her father's legacy. The passengers erupted in applause, tears, and cries of relief. Flight attendants hugged her, some sobbing. Emergency crews rushed in, checking, assisting, praising. And somewhere far above, the F-22 pilots roared in formation, guardian angels of steel and fire, acknowledging the Falcon who had just made history. Emily slumped in her seat, body shaking, hands still gripping the yoke. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "I did it, I am Falcon." But even as relief washed over her, she knew this was only the beginning. The questions, the truth, the recognition of her father's legacy, it was all waiting. And the world would never be the same. Emily Carter's hands finally loosened on the yoke, trembling as adrenaline slowly drained from her body. The passengers had erupted in a mixture of screams, applause, and tears, some hugging strangers, some collapsing into the arms of loved ones. Flight attendants hurried through the cabin, checking every passenger, their faces flushed with relief and disbelief. But Emily barely registered the chaos around her. Her mind was still high above, racing with the roar of F-22 engines and the surreal realization that the pilots, two of the most elite aviators in the country, had saluted her. Not her father, her, a passenger, a 19-year-old girl. The plane taxied to a stop under the watchful eyes of emergency crews. Doors opened, and passengers spilled out, still shaking, crying, whispering words of gratitude. Cameras flashed as reporters and onlookers documented the aftermath. Every life saved was a headline waiting to happen. Emily slumped in her seat, hands gripping her knees, heart hammering. Her mind flashed back to the radio transmission, the voice of the man who had once trained her father. "Falcon, your father's legacy carries through you." The words felt heavy now, almost tangible. Her father had been gone for 3 years, officially declared dead, shrouded in secrecy. Yet here she was carrying the very essence of his name and legacy, guiding a plane through near-catastrophic failure and saving hundreds of lives. Then the unthinkable happened. A soft knock on the cockpit door. Reeves and Hale entered, helmets tucked under their arms. Their faces were calm, but their eyes betrayed awe and something deeper, reverence. "Emily Falcon," Reeves began, voice low, almost hesitant, "we need to explain something, about the salute, about the call sign." Emily's hands tightened on her knees. Why did you salute me?" Hale stepped forward, his voice steady but firm. "Because, Falcon, we didn't salute a passenger. We saluted the name, the legacy. We saluted the daughter of Daniel Carter." Emily's mouth went dry. "But I'm just his daughter. I don't even know how to fly a real jet." Reeves shook his head slowly. "That's the thing. You did fly a real jet, and not just any jet. A Boeing 737 with 200 lives at stake. You honored your father's name. Every movement, every decision, every instinct you displayed was exactly what Daniel Carter would have done." Emily blinked, tears welling in her eyes. I didn't know." Hale placed a gloved hand on her shoulder. "No one expected you to, but the call sign Falcon, it isn't just a name, it's a symbol, a standard of excellence, of courage, of sacrifice. And when we heard it over the radio, we knew whoever said that call sign had the blood of a legend." The room was silent for a moment, the weight of history pressing down on all of them. Emily's thoughts raced back to the emergency descent, the failing engine, the smoke, the passengers screaming. Every decision she had made in those frantic moments suddenly felt like a bridge between two worlds, the world of her father's legacy and the world she had just carved out for herself. "Falcon," Reeves continued, "you didn't just survive the impossible, you mastered it. The F-22 pilots, the military, everyone who knows the history, they are in awe of what you accomplished today. You made history. Emily swallowed hard, her throat tight. I just did what I thought I had to do. Hale's expression softened. That's exactly what your father would have said. You didn't hesitate, you didn't panic, you acted. And that's why we saluted, because we recognized courage, because we recognized the bloodline, and because the world should recognize you now. Emily's tears spilled freely. She hadn't just landed a plane. She hadn't just saved hundreds of lives. She had stepped into a story she had only ever heard in whispers, a story of sacrifice, heroism, and honor that had been kept from her for too long. But the moment of relief was fleeting. A new tension arose, one she hadn't anticipated. The questions, the investigation, the scrutiny of the media. Every decision she had made would be analyzed, dissected, and debated. Every moment of bravery would be captured, replayed, and scrutinized. Reeves seemed to sense her concern. Falcon, you are about to be under a microscope, but remember this, what you did today cannot be diminished. You acted with instinct, courage, and skill beyond your years. That's what matters. Emily nodded, taking a deep breath. Her mind flashed to her father once more, imagining him standing beside her in the cockpit, proud but quiet, nodding in approval. You did well, Falcon. Just as she began to feel some semblance of calm, the airport intercom crackled to life. Emergency, crews, and media personnel were coordinating, but another voice, unfamiliar and authoritative, pierced the cabin. Attention all personnel. The individual who just landed Flight 228, call sign Falcon, has performed an unprecedented act of heroism. Stand by for further instructions. Emily froze, heart pounding. The world outside was beginning to wake up to what had just happened. The media would soon swarm. Officials would demand statements. And yet, through the fear and the uncertainty, one thing remained crystal clear. She had just rewritten history. The F-22s, meanwhile, had pulled into a holding pattern above the airport. Reeves and Hale gave her one last salute through the visor. It was more than respect. It was acknowledgement of a legacy that could not be ignored, a story that demanded recognition. Emily's eyes welled with tears again. She whispered softly, almost to herself. I am Falcon. Reeves' voice came through one last time. Never forget it. Your father's legacy is alive. Today it lives through you, and the world will know your name soon enough. Emily looked out the window at the sprawling runway, the flashing lights, the emergency crews, the city beyond. The sky was calm now, the turbulence behind her. And yet inside she felt the storm of the day lingering, the adrenaline, the fear, the awe, the gratitude, the legacy. She had survived, she had succeeded, she had honored her father. But one question lingered, twisting like a thread in her mind. If this was just the beginning, what would the world demand of Falcon next? The silence hung heavy before it was broken by the faint, almost imperceptible hum of F-22 engines fatting in the distance. The salute, the recognition, the promise. And somewhere in the sky above, two jets had witnessed history, honoring a call sign that had once belonged to a legend and now belonged to her. The sun was setting over Denver International Airport, painting the tarmac in fiery oranges and golds. Emily Carter sat in the cockpit of Flight 228, still trembling, her hands loosely resting on the yoke. The emergency crews had checked the aircraft, cleared the passengers, and secured the runway. But despite the physical safety, the adrenaline still pulsed through her veins like wildfire. She could feel every moment of the day replaying in her mind. The turbulence, the failing engine, the fear, the roar of the F-22s beside her. Falcon, Reeves' voice came through the radio one last time, calm, almost reverent. It's over. You did it. You've made history. Emily exhaled shakily. Her eyes drifted out the window. Two F-22 Raptors, silhouetted against the crimson sky, flew in a slow, ceremonial formation, a salute for a hero who had just stepped out of obscurity. Every instinct in her body told her this was the moment her life had changed forever. Reeves continued, "You've not only saved lives, you've upheld your father's legacy in a way that no one could have imagined. You are Falcon now, officially, in every sense that matters." Emily swallowed hard. I did what I had to do. I don't know if I. Hale interrupted softly, "Don't doubt yourself. You handled a full commercial jet alone with failing engines and thousands of decisions happening at once. Most trained pilots would have crumbled. You didn't. You stayed calm. You acted. You saved everyone." Her chest tightened. For the first time since boarding the plane that morning, the weight on her shoulders began to lift. But another weight remained, the knowledge that her father's sacrifice, long buried in secrecy, had finally been acknowledged, and now the world would learn about it through her. A vehicle approached the plane, and a small crowd of journalists, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions, and emergency officials gathered. Emily felt the surge of nerves rising, but a strange sense of purpose steadied her. She had survived the impossible. Now she had to face the world. One reporter stepped forward, microphone in hand. "Emily, can you tell us what happened? How did you manage to land this plane alone?" Emily inhaled deeply, her eyes scanning the crowd, then focused on the horizon. She spoke slowly, deliberately, her voice calm despite the storm inside her. "I was trained, I was guided, and I remembered everything my father taught me. Today, I did what any pilot would do. I protected the lives in my hands." A hush fell over the crowd. The F-22 pilots, Reeves and Hale, stood silently to one side, their presence alone commanding attention. Everyone in the world, civilians, military personnel, and the media, could sense the magnitude of what had happened. Reeves finally spoke, turning toward the press. "What you saw today was extraordinary. But you must understand, Emily Carter embodies the very essence of what it means to be a pilot, a leader, and a hero. Her father's legacy is alive through her, and today she has proven that courage, skill, and determination know no age." Emily's eyes brimmed with tears. The truth she had carried in silence, the shame, the questions about her father's disappearance, the uncertainty of his heroism, was finally validated. And she, a young woman once thought inexperienced, had become a symbol of hope, courage, and resilience. But the public recognition wasn't the only revelation waiting. Reeves stepped forward, lowering his voice so only Emily could hear. "Falcon, the military has already begun declassifying certain details of your father's last mission. The world will soon know the full story of Daniel Carter, how he sacrificed himself for his team, how he embodied the ideals of the service, and how he left behind the strongest legacy imaginable. You." Emily swallowed, her mind racing. Her father had been gone, officially missing for 3 years, but now his heroism, once buried in secrecy, would finally be known. And she had not only preserved that legacy, she had amplified it beyond measure. The crowd erupted as emergency crews guided the passengers off the aircraft. People hugged, cried, laughed. Some took photos. Others whispered their awe and gratitude. Emily stayed in the cockpit a moment longer, absorbing the scene, the chaos, the relief, the celebration. She had survived, yes, but she had transformed. Then, as the sun dipped lower and the sky blazed like fire, the 2 F-22s returned overhead, performing a ceremonial flyby. Reeves and Hale saluted her once again, wings slicing through the sky with military precision. Every move, every gesture was a tribute, not to a civilian passenger, but to Falcon, to Emily Carter, to the daughter of Daniel Carter. Tears streamed down her face as she realized the magnitude of the moment. She had not only saved lives but had also reclaimed her father's honor. Every whisper of doubt, every shadow of shame, every unanswered question from the past, they were gone, replaced by recognition, pride, and an unshakable sense of purpose. But just as relief washed over her, Emily felt a flicker of anticipation. The world would now watch her. The media, the public, the military, all eyes would be on Falcon, and deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Someone approached, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. Reeves, Hale, mentor, guardian, symbol of the skis. "You did more than survive," he said softly. "You inspired, and the world will follow. But remember, being Falcon isn't just about landing a plane. It's about carrying the courage and responsibility that comes with it. Are you ready for that?" Emily looked out at the horizon, the city below, the emergency lights, the flashing cameras, the F-22s roaring high above. She inhaled deeply, feeling the weight and the power of the moment. And then, with a quiet strength that surprised even herself, she nodded. I am Falcon," she said, voice steady, eyes blazing, "and I will honor this legacy every day I can." The F-22s banked once more, roaring in unison before streaking toward the sunset. The crowd fell silent, awed by the final ceremonial salute, and in that silence the world understood. A new hero had risen. A young woman, once just a passenger, now carried the name, courage, and vision of a legend. Emily stepped out of the cockpit, her uniform rumpled, hands still trembling but her heart resolute. Around her, reporters clamored, emergency crews cheered, and passengers waved in gratitude. And through it all, one truth shone brighter than the setting sun. She was Falcon. And from that day forward, the call sign, Falcon, would never be spoken lightly again. Not in civilian skis, not in military history, not in the hearts of those who witnessed the impossible. She had flown through fear, through chaos, through history itself, and landed not just a plane but a legacy. And somewhere high above, two F-22 pilots watched, saluted one final time, and whispered through their visors, "Welcome to the skis, Falcon. You belong here."